I feel like I can never get the freaking seating in this chair quite correct. I feel like when sometimes I lean back too far and then it's like it looks like I'm wearing just like underwear. Like this freaking couch sinks in too much for my fat ass. But so I got a little bit of a different episode for y'all today. Feeling a little bit under the weather, unfortunately. Um that's why I got the sunglasses on. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's allergies, but there's like a weird fog in the air today. I don't know if that shit's smoke. I don't smell anything. I haven't heard anything. But I just woke up with like a headache and I need to record one today. Otherwise, I won't get to release one this week because of some like conflicting schedule shit. And I don't want to miss another week. Last week, I took a break from uploading an episode because it was kind of like a deload week for me. Not from podcasting, it just happened to be that way, but primarily for like the gym. And then because I had a lot of preparations to do on a trip that I went on to Arizona with Andy, Sandra, and Hannah. I'm not going to get into like the details of what happened on that trip because I want that to be an entirely new or an entirely other episode, preferably with Andy or with like whoever else was on that trip, or with Gata to talk about our two recent trips that we had because she went to Puerto Rico, so she definitely has some really awesome stuff to share about that trip. But today's episode is gonna be another. I think I already said this, but solo dolo episode for y'all. We're gonna be, or not we're. I'm gonna be talking about some of my thoughts on some entertainment shit, some shows that I've recently gotten into, and some movies that I've recently seen that I just want to talk about. So obviously going to Phoenix, there's a 6 hour flight there, something about like 5.5, 6 hours, and obviously like the returning flight is close to 5 hours as well. Just under five was my experience. But that entire time you're sitting on the plane, you got to do something, right? And I'm not really typically a shows guy, but I've been, for whatever reason, watching a lot of shows recently, right? And I don't know, some of these commercials, some of these advertisements, some of these trailers really got me. For example, the show that I'm kind of like all up into right now is Shogun. That shit is that shit is literally, somebody else referenced it in this way too. It's like feudal Japan, Game of Thrones. That's the best way I could describe it. There's a lot of like treachery, treason, plotting, scheming, trying to take control. It's like a lot of powerful characters clashing together and having like ulterior motives, and it's very crazy because then a lot of the characters are revealed to have very intense backstories with one another, and it's wild shit. But it's very well done. There's a dubbed version, I think, but I'm watching like the original Japanese version, which I also thought was pretty cool. That they didn't make these actors, you know, speak in English with like a Japanese accent. They actually made it so that they're speaking Japanese. Obviously, I hate subtitles, and Hannah's called me out on this. I've been on record saying this before. I do not like subtitles, but for whatever reason, that fucking show Shogun, I could watch that show with subtitles. That's a show I could tolerate watching and so show. Oh my god, that's a show I can tolerate watching with subtitles on, just like I could tolerate One Punch Man. That's my favorite anime. So yeah, that's like a show I've really been into. I watched and completed The Brother's Son, even though that's so goddamn tragic because Netflix canceled that damn show. Honest opinion, I thought it started off really strong, but it kind of like pooped out towards the end. There were too many like weird things that I guess came out of left field, or they didn't handle it as like gritty as I wanted them to. The comedy, I would say, made it too light at times. I wanted it to be like more like serious at other times. I felt like it was too lighthearted, especially towards the end. I don't know if that's just me. Um, I think that, that's just obviously my dumb take on that. But I thought it was a really good show. Sad to hear that it got canceled. The fight scenes were pretty sick. Some of them were cheesy that I was like, all right, whatever. But some of them were actually like pretty well done. Especially that opening sequence was like a really good way to start off a show. I really fucking enjoyed. That's like that John Wick just rush of action right off the bat at the beginning. Like opening scene is wild. So that's always like a good way to establish like the main action guy as a badass when he just, I don't want to spoil anything, but that's a great show opener, especially if you like action and like kung fu style choreography. That shit was fantastic. But the rest of the show kind of like, dies out a little bit. So I finished watching that. The main thing I want to talk about is Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is unfortunate. I, as a very big fan of the original Avatar series, and I know I sound like a fucking hater. There are so many people out there that, the original is always like, oh my God, that's the best one. I'm not trying to be one of these guys, okay? All I'm saying is that I very much appreciated the original Avatar series because it's very, very closely tied into like my grandfather from like memories that I have of him as a child, like as a young child or younger child, right? Like 12 years old, I want to say. I can't remember how old I was when it came out, but I remember I think I was like in middle school. So from that time when used to go to my grandparents' house in Queens, my grandfather would love watching that show. He was obsessed with that show for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. He was just obsessed with that show. And during the daytimes, like when I'd sleep over there, like him and I would watch that show. It would always be on whenever I got to his house. He still watches it now. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if he's seen the live action version, but now that he's a little bit older into his age, I'm not sure if he remembers if he's like seen one or two episodes just here or there. But not to make things too serious or heavy hearted. He's chilling, but it's just he's a little bit older now. He's getting a little ripe. So it's like I can't have these conversations with him about, I guess, like this Avatar, even though I plan to do a podcast episode with him, just not on like modern stuff, obviously. So this Avatar, that's the reason why I have a very, very, very near and dear place in my heart for the original Avatar series, right? And I think like season 1 of the original Avatar series was a little bit slow, but once you get past that initial like I guess rough patch or like after, it needs a little bit of time to like get its grips in, but once it does, it takes off. Once it gets traction, it really takes off and just fucking keeps going and keeps getting better. There's a couple points there where I'm like, okay, this is getting a little bad, like throughout the original series, but overall, it's still one of like, it's like top 3 shows for me, honest to God. It's a fire fucking show. I still cry when I hear that damn song, Leaves from the Vine or whatever, where Uncle Iroh's like singing to his like since deceased son, or to his since deceased son on his birthday. Like that shit always gets me teary eyed. I don't know why. It just really does. That shit hits, and that is all this to say. That is an incredibly large volume of work. 4 seasons. I want to say it was like over 20 episodes or close to 20 episodes every single season. God damn, that light is bright. Every single season. So this is all to say, with the obvious like cult-like following that the original Avatar series has, with the disastrous live-action movie attempt that just fucking bombed for obvious reasons. With those two things, right, as established pieces of history, this remake, this live-action remake, is a very, very, very hard thing to like a very hard project to like undertake, right? But I was hesitant, right? I was hesitant like going into it because I found out that Hannah had told me that the original creators of the Avatar series, they like stepped off the project. They left the project even though they were involved with creating it, right? Developing it in its early stages. I want to say, and I should fact check if this is true. I'll put a note in the actual thing if it's true or not. But the original creators, I think, at some point left. And I'm like, fuck, that's kind of like a little bit of a red flag. And I could totally see for some reasons why they left. So I guess overall take on Avatar: The Last Airbender. My overall take on that show is the live action remake is that I think they had some things that deserve a lot of credit, but overall I thought it was like pretty mid. I'm not saying it was ass. It wasn't crap. It was decent at times. Sometimes it was like a little bit of a tearjerker, right? But it didn't hit obviously like I expected it, or it didn't hit to like comparing to the original, but it didn't hit the way I was expecting it to or wanted it to. So I thought overall I'd give it like a 5.5 as a series, like mid being like obviously like it's mid plus, I guess I would say. My main problems with it are the fact that I felt like some characters were miscast OD, like the real I don't want to the real live action version, okay, of some of these characters, they don't look anything like the fucking original characters. Like, I'm not trying to sound too much of a savage here, but we're talking about like just simple things like face shape, right? My main gripe is with May, okay? And this is no meant with no like mal intent towards the actor that portrayed May or the actress that portrayed May, but just face shape wise, like May is like super like almost long face and like thin, very very pointed chin. I don't think the actress that plays May has that. I don't. I think she has more of like a oval or circular face shaped like person like I am, right? Like I have more of a circular face shape, but I just don't think that she looks like May. I really don't think she looks like May. So that was like one of the things. A second thing was I was a little bit disappointed with Uncle Iroh because he's obviously my favorite character, and I think the actor or I think he's from like Parks Convenience or something like that. He was a good actor. It's so hard to replace that original voice and like that original character. But overall, like the real gripes that I have with that show is the fact that they really rushed the plot. So the miscasting is okay, whatever. Like it's not a huge deal, right? It's like little gripes that I have with the show, but the main issue that I had with it, the reason why I really just dropped a bunch of points, was because it felt like it was rushing the crap out of the plot. The plot was so, like I said, like the original Avatar series, that's a lot of episodes, a lot of like lore to run through in a live action series, especially with the budget that you have to put behind it for like the production. It has a huge, I could definitely tell from the show that it had a pretty decent production value. The costume design I thought was fire. Another redeeming quality, or one of the redeeming qualities of the show. I thought the costume design was really, really done very well. I think Zuko was portrayed actually like, I thought not as good as the original. I mean, I hate to say it, but he was pretty good. Like the actor, his storyline, all of it put together, I would say that was pretty good. It's way better than the original live action movie retake, obviously, but this Prince Zuko, I'm a fan. I'm a fan for sure. But it's just like the storylines besides Prince Zuko's, which I think was done like relatively well. Some of the other storylines, like the world building, it felt like rushed, and at times it was like too much or just thrown in there at like very weirdly spaced points throughout the entire series. So I don't know, man. Like that show, there's a lot to Avatar that the original series, right? The world that Avatar is in and the job that they do of slowly building it. And I get that the fans are coming into this, or they probably made it with the perspective of the fans are coming into this knowing a lot about Avatar. I understand that they probably went into it with that thought, but I think they rushed it just a little bit. So like sometimes it was just kind of like, whoa, that was random. Like some shit comes out of nowhere, like it's just very rapidly introduced, that I kind of have a little bit of like a problem with that, just because I want things to like bake a little bit. And then, after they bake and they're nice and like it's perfect timing in the story for that, then it's a good time to, reveal something big. It's not like every 5 seconds. It's like that show was every episode. There were like multiple things just jammed in there. And it felt like in one season we went over what feels like 2 seasons. Like they really just put 2X on that bitch. And again, I know that it's really hard to do, but I would have appreciated it if they slowed down the pace of the show a bit and just took more time to like do world building. I thought that would have been really sick, or a good way to, improve the show. Some of the redeeming qualities, like I said, for sure, the costume design, but the fight choreography or the way they portrayed the, like the elements It was pretty well done. I don't understand how like Aang is all of a sudden able to fly. That was never part of the original lore. I don't know like where that came from. Like in the first couple episodes of the live action remake, he just jumps off of like a huge I think it's like in the first or second episode, he jumps off a huge structure, like some statue or something in the temple, and he just flies like basically to the ground. No glider, no nothing, no air ball to like roll down the side of the nothing. Like he just like floats. So I don't know, little things like that, and also like the firebenders, they like go like this with an open hand instead of using a fist. Little details like that, because I really like how firebending before was done with like a closed fist. I thought that was a unique aspect of the original, I guess, like fight choreography that or fight animations that they did, the artists on that show that they did, that I thought was very unique. And now in the live action remake, they're kind of doing with open handed, so it seems a little bit like more magical and less, I guess, like less like training or like based, I guess, in real physics. I don't know how to explain it. So that was like, besides those two things, the fight or the fight choreography was great, and the depiction of the elements for the most part were very well done. Was very well done. So I thought those were the redeeming elements of that show. I don't know, like I finished the whole season. I definitely will watch the second season when it comes out, just to watch it, because I'm such a fan of that like world and that lore, that I just feel like I have to, because I'm a huge fan of the original, but not sure if it's going to improve. I hope it improves. I hope they hear like a lot of the criticism that they got, because I know this isn't like a original statement what I'm saying here. I think it, for the most part, it was received well, but a lot of people thought that it could have been better. That's all I'm really trying to say. Besides Avatar, yeah, there is a lot of, okay, holy shit. This is going to get me a lot of hate. Or I don't know, maybe a lot of hate from like the bros. I think Roadhouse, I was so fucking, let me preface my review on Roadhouse by saying I was so damn excited for this movie. I'm a fan of Jake Gyllenhaal, okay? I'm a fan of Conor McGregor's. I'm a fan of Post Malone, who makes like, they really made it out to seem like he was like playing a bigger part, a little bit of a side character. He's in the movie for like 5 max 8 minutes. I think like less than 10 for sure he's in the movie. And I really thought he was going to be more involved, right? So it was like, but going into it, that aside, going into it, I was hyped because I thought that these three people that I'm a fan of were really going to like do an epic fucking movie. I have not seen the original. I know the original is kind of a cult classic, or it's a classic, right? Piece of cinema, but I haven't seen it. I just went into it with like a, you know what? I know it's like a remake of, I think, an 80s movie, but it's like a new modern version. Obviously, you got more like MMA influence, and obviously because Conor's involved, the way they marketed the movie was very well done. They were kind of saying like Conor had some say in like a little bit of like the fight choreography, because that, oh, you know, that move's not that realistic, whatever. And it was like Conor's big acting debut. I thought that movie, that movie was, I'm gonna sound like such a harsh critic today, because I'm giving two of these things the same like kind of ass review, but I thought that movie was mid. The plot was like, I never felt like, they always hinted to this dark side of Jake Gyllenhaal's character that they never really dug into. I felt like they included moments, flashbacks, where you're meant to be like, oh my God, he's so dark and gritty at like the weirdest times. Because most of the movie, you see him being pretty cuddly, like pretty good, not really being dark. He's always like lighthearted, like he's always smiling, right? I get all that, but they never really early on dig into a dark side, or they never really show it, or, you know, like let it sit on camera for more than like a couple like, you know, maybe a minute or something in the beginning parts of the movie. So because they didn't introduce that in as a foundational part of his character early on, like you're curious, right? And I'm gonna give a little bit of a spoiler here. I feel like it's impossible to talk about why I thought this movie was mid without giving spoilers away. But so spoiler alert. But Jake Gyllenhaal's character, right? He's an MMA fighter who kills a guy in the ring. And that apparently, like, that gets him kicked out of the UFC. It gets him into a bunch of trouble, right? And it basically forces him to now retire early as a fighter. So he resorts to like underground bar fighting as a main source of income, to basically make up for the fact that he killed someone. And he lives like in his car. He's like a homeless. He lives out of his like a suitcase, and he has like a fishing like a lure box, right? Like a fishing box to keep his fucking money in, like cash from these bar fights. That grittiness is only really shown in the first like 15 minutes of the movie. If it was up to me, if you're really and it's a long movie, it's like 2 hours, I think, total runtime, over 2 hours. If it was up to me in that movie, I would have liked to seen Jake Gyllenhaal's character. I can't even remember the guy's name. Like, I feel kind of bad in saying that, but I can't even remember the dude's name. He doesn't have enough time showing how he's like really battling his like PTSD, I guess, from killing the guy in the ring, or his anger issues. There's nothing really that shows that. The whole time he's kind of just like numb, and he's like, "You're gonna want to check out your like saying classic badass shit," and he's very like he's very laid back about the fact that he's fucking people up left and right. But the thing is like, I'm all down for that, but they never show the opposite side, the more interesting side, like his darker side. They don't spend enough time doing that. So I thought that, like, kind of just all of a sudden expecting him to snap and start killing people towards the end, like left and right, was all of a sudden like, oh yeah. That makes perfect sense. They didn't establish him as like a killer like that. They just made it seem like, oh, he accidentally killed a fucking guy. Now he's doing like gritty shit, but he's not a killer. All of a sudden he flips a fucking switch at the end, and apparently he always was. Like, I don't know, it felt a little bit rushed. So that's like a problem that I have with that movie. Conor McGregor's acting, I think he said he's like the largest, highest paid acting debut of all time. I believe it, obviously. I don't know if that number's adjusted, or that stat is adjusted for inflation, but I don't know how much he got paid. It was in the tens of millions. It was something crazy. But that's a pretty penny to earn for your acting debut. I thought he was pretty decent. I'm not saying he deserves a fucking Oscar or anything, but he was pretty good in the movie, and his character is fucking hilarious. And he got yoked. That's the reason that dude probably was on like roids or something. I don't know. That's like the allegations that have been made against him. But this dude was huge for that role. Knox was hilarious. He's just this like animal berserker fucking Irish dude that goes around just doing wild ass shit. Wild shit. His intro is hilarious, but the fight scenes I thought were a little bit underwhelming. There was a lot of like snappy camera moments that kind of took away from the fight. And there were some, I guess, unrealistic moves. Like, if these are two MMA fighters, like trained MMA fighters, I thought they were really going to do like UFC mixed martial arts the way it really looks. I thought they were going to do that and give it justice. And they do a little bit of it, right? But they don't really, I guess, accomplish what they made it seem like they were set out to achieve via the marketing. They really talked about having like a sense of realism in the fights, and there is, for sure. It was well done, but at the same time I'm just like, oh my god, like, all right, that's a little bit over the top. And I thought it was going to be a little bit more realistic. And my main problems was mostly with the camera again. Like, these jerky fucking movements were pretty crazy. So it kind of just like distracted from the craziness or like the impressiveness of the fight choreography. So it was a decent movie. I also give that shit like I give it like a 6. That movie, it was okay. It was good. It was decent. It wasn't anything great or fantastic, but it was like a little bit long, but it was overall a pretty good watch. But yeah, those are like the main, I guess, like, there's mad cop cars outside. Holy shit, my microphone is picking that up. And my fucking phone is being used to record. Great. So that means, all right, well, hope everything's okay. I'm going to get those Citizens of the app alerts later. Yo, New York City, man. New York City. I feel like it's going back into its, god damn. That's like crazy sounding. I don't know if the microphone is picking that up, but there is a wild amount of like alarms going off, like police sirens, cop cars, probably ambulances and stuff like that going on outside. Another day in fucking Brooklyn. I love New York City, but it's seen better days for sure. I feel like it's going back into like its 90s era, which is pretty crazy. Like every day I follow this Instagram page called New York Shitty, and every day they're posting some wild stuff that just kind of like bums me out. I got like allergies in this bitch. It's smoggy out today. I'm telling y'all, it's crazy. My goodness. But man, I hope everything's okay. This is crazy. These police sirens are wild. But New York City, man, like that Instagram page, like they're posting videos and news feeds about stuff that happens, like pretty real time updates, like within a day or two about some like pretty wild shit. Anything from like I guess law updates or like policy changes to like more serious things. Like recently, there's been a lot of like stabbing, shootings in the subways, which is why now the National fucking Guard is deployed in New York City. It's crazy. Huge mood change just because I heard those crazy sirens in the background. But it's wild to see New York City kind of go through this, and it's a shame because I remember a lot of people. Obviously, I'm too young. I don't even think I was in like I don't even know if I was past kindergarten when no, I was like 3 years old, right? 3 years old when about three when 9/11 happened, and a lot of people say that after 9/11, the exception of some very targeted racism, and I don't mean that casually. That's just like a fact. Uh, that was like the most unified New York has been, or like the really like the prime days in New York was a couple years after 9/11 because everyone in the city was unified. Obviously, again, aside for that targeted racism, um, everyone in the city was nicer, right? It was just more. It was just like a better place to live. That's what a lot of people say. I've heard a lot of people say that. But even as soon, right, as little back as like 8 years ago, I remember the city being way better than it is now. And this was when I was maybe not eight, maybe even as soon as 7 or 6 years ago, back when I was in school commuting before 2020. Um, in the late 2010s, basically. I remember the city being way better than it is now, and I would commute in and out, and you would think that would mean that I would hate it because of the long ass commutes, but while I was in the city, I thought this shit it was awesome. I explored Brooklyn in that time, all throughout too, which now there's some areas that I remember in those years of exploring Brooklyn. I remember certain areas being a lot nicer, and now it's a lot of like these areas where there's a lot of these citizen alerts going on, these citizen app alerts going on, like, shootings and just crazy shit like that. People getting killed and stuff. It's super tragic. And, that's why I'm fucking, dude, I'm out. I was talking about this with Cynthia on my last episode, but I can't, the city is, it's scary a little bit. It's kind of, there's like an overwhelming sense of I guess like anxiety when you walk around, especially when you know your girlfriend's out or something and you're worried about her safety, or you're just walking around and you're like, fuck, like it's so like bad in certain parts, right? Like you can't take the subway home late at night, so you can't you can't drink too much, or you shouldn't, just to be safe and stuff like that. So you just thinking about that gives you like an overall sense of anxiety that I've kind of feel like I've developed over the last year and change of living in the city. So it's strange. But that all being said, I'll still always have a fucking special place in my heart for this city because it is like the area of the world that I'm from, and there's a lot of great memories that I've made here, obviously. But I think for the next period of my life, man, I don't know if I could be in NYC for too much longer. That's all I'm trying to say. So we talked about those movies. The last thing that I will give I'm going to end off on a good review here on this episode. Very short episode today. It's like literally 30 minutes, but you know what? Like, I'm like, my allergies are wilding out right now, so I gotta cut this one short. Is the show Invincible. I swear to God, this show This show is like the only good the show that I probably look forward to seeing the most right now. I don't watch a lot of shows, but I love shows that take a concept and they have fun with it, like Invincible and The Boys. I love The Boys. I'm super excited to watch the new season. But Invincible right now just recently released its second half, or started to release episodes from its second half of its second season, so season 2.5. This shit slaps, yo. Like it fucking slaps. It's not as good as the first season. I will say that the second season so far has not been as good as the first season. But the first season's hard to surpass, in my opinion. I think the first season of Invincible is like, it's up there. I fucking love that show. That style of animation, like the way they play around with superpowers and stuff like that, the intensity, the brutality, like the violence of like what would really happen if like two Superman godlike power beings clashed in like a major metropolitan area. There would be some wild damage. That show does not shy away from that, which I fucking love. So yeah, basically, I think Invincible is the last great thing, series or show or piece of entertainment that I've really been fucking with lately. You good?
Yeah.
Why you slam the door like that? Hannah just got home. Yeah, no, but I think Invincible's holding it down for sure. Hannah's trying to get me to watch some shows. Some shows that I don't even like. What's that anime?
Promise Neverland.
Promise Neverland. She's trying to get me to watch this freaking show about monsters who eat children, and I'm like, I'm good. Like, I need to sleep. I am scared a bit. Yo, I feel like my lips are fucking crusty. They're gonna be crusty this whole ass episode. I'm doing a short one this week. Like, it's going pretty shit so far. If I'm being honest, if I do gotta say so myself, but these are all part of the growing pains. 32 minutes. I definitely got some exciting shows coming up, or episodes, not shows, coming up for y'all. Gonna have some interesting characters on here for sure. Terrence, aka Trock, aka T Rock, whatever you want to call him. He goes by many names. Very cool guy. He's gonna make another return on this show for Beef and Broccoli episode. I want to say like 3, sometime soon. So it's a lot of cool episodes coming out that are in the works. It's just this week with a lot of chaos with the fucking cats traveling back and forth that me and Hannah have to do. It's kind of like a right now. It's kind of I don't want to use that corporate term, but I get it's a very like impromptu, I guess, 2 weeks or chaotic, hectic past 2 weeks. But Invincible. Back to what I was saying before Hannah came in. Invincible is honestly like I want to say like it's like the last bastion of fucking good pieces of entertainment, and I'm glad that they took the time because of production conflicts to just. I'm glad that they took the space or time that they needed to finish the second half of the season and then release it. Even though it's a weird way, I really admire when studios, producers, when the whole production crew, actors, everything, when the studios can decide to just hold off on rushing the product and just let the product be, fully developed, fully fleshed out. Because I'd always rather wait for something and have it be incredible rather than, give it to me sooner and it be, ass. Like, I feel like that concept pretty much applies with a lot of things in life. Like video games too. Food, video games, but mainly video games and, food. Those are two analogies that come to my mind pretty quickly. Those two things, I'd always rather wait for it a little bit longer and rather have it be better than rushed. And lately, entertainment seems like it has been doing that, which is a little bit sad to say because, I don't know, man. Shit just don't hit like it used to. And after huge disappointments of major blockbuster titles and IPs, I'm just kind of like, damn, like there's not really that much good stuff out there. And Invincible's like one of the last things that are really like killing it, as far as like new shit goes. So, yeah, that's really all this episode today was about. A little bit of an update on what I've been watching, thoughts on those things, and I guess foreshadowing for future episodes. I am super excited to talk about Arizona. either with Andy or someone else, whoever was on that trip. But goddamn, like my allergies are acting up, and I think it's time. I gotta wrap this one up, y'all. I'm so sorry. It is early. It's 35 minutes, but I do want to say, real quick, I've gained. I'm over 200 subscribers now, which I think I've mentioned before in a previous podcast episode, which is sick. Building a little bit of a following here on YouTube. Finally, last week or 2 weeks ago, I released an episode with Cynthia. That episode was fire. She's talked to me. We've been sharing the clips back and forth or whatever, and she has said that she's down to come on for another episode, and she's down to run it back for the part 2, which is sick. Don't know when that will be. Obviously, got to space that out a little bit, but for the most part, that episode blew up a little bit. For me, I would say blew up a little bit. Usually I'm rocking with like 70 views on average, and that's mostly because I just spam fucking clips and links on my Instagram feed to like my family members, and they'll just send it to like their family members or whatever. And I'm like farming over here, but usually it's around 70. This one got over 400 views, which was crazy. So finally that YouTube algorithm is awarding a little bit of a consistency, even though I say that after taking a fucking week break. But things are going pretty cool here. I would love y'all's feedback. I still got to get, as far as like production value goes, I'm going to be real with y'all. Like the recording on the phone situation is tough. It's not ideal just because of the fact that I can't really see the frame while I'm recording. That's why I'm kind of like, it's also cool to wear sunglasses because a lot of the times I'll put a mirror up behind my phone so I could see what I'm looking at, and without having it be distracting. Like if I just look through the sunglasses with my eyes instead of like moving my whole head or whatever, or like you're obviously being able to see me look at the way the shot is set up. So I need like a proper camera, but them shits be expensive as fuck. That's probably going to be the next investment I make. And then after that, very close second is proper lighting, because this Ring camera, you guys have said it before, anytime I wear, it's definitely in the sunglasses or glasses, there's like a huge ring glare that comes off, which I've gotten actually more than like 2 or 3 comments saying that it's a bit distracting. So I got to fix that for sure. Hopefully production value increases soon, but little thing I want to say for, I guess, micro influencers, if you will consider me that, is if you put I got a piece of advice, right, from someone who, a buddy of mine, who told me to put my business email in the caption or in the bio of my TikTok. And for the most part, it actually did. I set up the email and it actually did get a lot of like emails, but a lot of them were spams or like mass marketing emails for, I guess, micro influencers, which is like weird. I felt like it was kind of like, you got to weave out in your early beginnings. I'm not expecting any sponsorships soon, obviously. I do this as like a passion project, but the fact that like I did it was ages ago, back when TikTok, like COVID times during TikTok. Since then, even though I don't get a lot of activity because I'm convinced I'm shadow banned on TikTok, there are still emails that come through, even though my new videos that are published, right, whatever, that are posted, they only get like 250 views. There'll be people emailing me about like partnering up with this or sponsoring this, and it's always the same generic ass email. So you got to look out for those. That's my little tip for the day. If you're trying to, whatever, be a content creator, you got to watch out for a lot of those sketch ass emails that, I don't know, they sound too good to be true a lot of the times. They're just trying to get like you to download their influencer app or whatever. There's legit ones out there for sure. There's a lot of legit ones, but there's some really sketchy ones where it also just seems like they're trying to take your information. So, proceed with caution is all I got to say about that. But yeah, so if you made it to the end of this wild episode, this really, I'll be honest, as I'm recording, I could be harsh on myself here. Not the best episode objectively, I think, but is again part of the growing pains. If you made it to the end of this episode, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment for sure. Give me some feedback, all that stuff. If you made it to the end and did all that social media bullshit, thank you so much. I'll catch y'all. Cue the outro music. And I'll catch y'all on the next one. Deuces, y'all.